What's going on, people who decided to click on the video? It's your boy MarvelFan97, and today is a very special day. You know why? Because it's August 9th, 2017. And you know what that means? I am a 20-year-old man. Not gonna lie, being 20 when you look like a 15-year-old with a lot of facial hair, it makes you think, am I ageless? But enough about that. You saw the thumbnail, you saw the title, let's get down to business. I want to be clear that I will not be predicting any Phase 4 movies. We all know there's going to be a Spider-Man trilogy, a Doctor Strange trilogy, a Black Panther trilogy, a Captain Marvel trilogy, a Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. What I'll be doing is looking at the cinematic universe and how it will progress as a whole. With the critical and commercial success of Spider-Man Homecoming, it seems as if Spider-Man will replace Iron Man as the center of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, I think there is a superhero who is much better qualified for the job as center of the universe, and that is, of course, Doctor Strange. The reason I picked the Sorcerer Supreme is because, for one thing, his powers are more powerful. Sure, Spider-Man can stop a bus with his bare hands, and he can swing rooftop to rooftop, but Doctor Strange trapped a celestial being in a time loop until he can guarantee Earth's safety.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
You know how people said that the Avengers should have been in Captain America the Winter Soldier? Well, where were they during Doctor Strange? You had a doomsday scenario going on halfway across the world, and yet none of them, not a single one of them, decided, hey, we should probably go check that out. Maybe Thanos is arriving or something. But then again, if this takes place after Civil War, then they would probably still be butting heads, and it would just be an awkward phone call. So based on powers alone, Doctor Strange is a more viable candidate to be the center of the universe instead of Spider-Man. In fact, this universe's version of NYC has so many superheroes running around, I'm surprised they don't have a rotation system for who gets to spend the week saving the city. One week it could be the Defenders, next week it's Spider-Man all by himself, the week after that it's Iron Man, and so on and so forth until they run out of heroes. What's important to remember is that whoever is the central figure affects the universe around them. A Spider-Man-centric MCU would be very different from a Doctor Strange-centered MCU. In the Spider-Man universe, we would see people with amazing abilities be a bit more grounded. Whereas with Doctor Strange as the main focus, we would continue to explore different parts of the MCU and see what weird and new things come up. We know that the original Wasp is still stuck in the Phantom Zone, but they plan to get her out in time for Ant-Man and the Wasp. How they do that without Doctor Strange will be interesting to watch, to say the least. If you pay attention to the Marvel movies, you'll notice that the villains aren't actually being dropped like flies like they were in the first two phases. Zemo, Mordor, Vulture, they're all still alive and kicking by the time the end credits roll. And with that comes the potential of having cool villains that aren't Loki. And if you ask me, having Loki as the one cool villain out of the entire cinematic universe is a bit of a tired trope at this point. Don't get me wrong, I thought James Spader's performance as Ultron was fantastic, but unfortunately, the character meets his end before the credits roll, and there's no post-credit scenes that indicate his return. Ultron is sort of like the arch-rival of the Avengers. He pops up when it's least expected and is always ready to wreak havoc. Now, an Ultron return will be very difficult to play out. Would Doctor Strange be messing with the Time Stone and accidentally revive him? Would Spider-Man try to recreate the artificial intelligence that Tony Stark once started as sort of like a tribute to him? Or will he come back through a time portal or a dimension portal or some other weird portally time-traveling wobbly stuff? Marvel has been the king of bringing their characters back to life. So just imagine if they did that with Ultron, say, in the next 5 years or so. If they were to bring back Ultron, they would have to wait until the Avengers were a completely new team. Instead of having Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, we would have Black Panther, Doctor Strange, and Ant-Man. We don't know whether or not the Hulk will still be around after Avengers 4, but chances are, if he does survive, then they may retire the character sort of like out of old age or something. I don't know, but bottom line is, we're going to see some new Avengers before Ultron comes back. And by the time they do bring him back, he would have been in the ground for quite some time. Long enough for fans to think that he was dead, but short enough so that he wasn't just brought back because they're desperate. And I'd like to add another condition onto the Ultron return. He would have to be unstoppable. I'm talking original comic where they have to go back in time in order to stop him because he's that powerful. That will be a favor to both the comic book fans and those who felt bummed by Joss Whedon's Age of Ultron. Although, me personally, I thought it was better than the first. Now that brings me to my next point. Kevin Feige has stated that the fourth Avengers movie will be the last big event Marvel movie for a while. This will be a nice refresher as it finishes off a story that was started a decade ago, but also opens up the possibility of superheroes facing more Earthbound threats. Think the first Iron Man movie. The bad guys were a terrorist and a Stark Industries executive who wanted the armor for himself. If that's the route they go with Phase 4 Marvel movies, then I'm down for it. I think that's what the superhero genre is missing these days. Bad guys who commit simple crimes like robbery, theft, robbery and theft, I think that's about it. Point is, Phase 4 Marvel, we're going to see a lot of superheroes doing their own thing and not really coming together until an actual Avengers movie. An interesting change from what they're doing now, with Iron Man showing up in Homecoming and Doctor Strange and Hulk appearing in Thor Ragnarok. Marvel has been the textbook example of building and maintaining a cinematic universe, so much so that it's now the highest grossing film franchise in movie history. Unless of course the next 5 Avatar movies make over $2 billion worldwide. Box office numbers aside, Phase 4 Marvel is going to be very different from Phase 3 Marvel in terms of interconnectivity. We're not going to see Spider-Man show up in the Doctor Strange sequel, we're not going to see Ant-Man show up in the Black Panther sequel. They're going to stick to their own solo movies in their own little established world until they need to come together to battle the big threat in the next Avengers movie. Now let's talk about the cosmic aspect of this universe. Captain Marvel and the Guardians of the Galaxy. We know that the Skrulls will be introduced in Captain Marvel, hence the conspiracy theory that Tony Stark has been a Skrull all this time. What makes it the most interesting is that Captain Marvel is an Earthbound superhero who is now heading off into space to fight the bad guys there. Now it isn't the first time Marvel Studios will have Earth and space meet. Aside from the Avengers and Guardians team up for Infinity War, there was a proposed post-credit scene for Iron Man 3 where Iron Man goes up into space in a special suit to meet up with the Guardians and basically say, "We need your help." I guess the reason they scrapped that scene was because the first Avengers movie came out the previous year. So it would be odd to set up a movie that at that point was probably just a scribble on a notepad when it wouldn't even be announced for another 17 months. As the case with most standalone Marvel movies, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will be the last outing for our fellow heroes in space. Now that begs the question, will the team just be reformed or will it be disbanded altogether? This could happen in a potential Captain Marvel sequel or I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to predict which movies will be coming out, just the general direction in which the universe will go. The Guardians of the Galaxy have always been the gatekeeper to the space part of the cinematic universe, and after Volume 3, the keys to the cosmos are going to be handed over to Captain Marvel. Only time will tell what's in store for the Avengers and the Guardians as we move into Phase 4. That's it for this week's video. Be sure to hit subscribe and maybe tap or click that notification button, and be sure to Hulk smash that like button. This is James Ewart, and I've hoped you made it through the middle of the week.